Okay. Maybe I'll present this, and then if you have tried the day 1.do, we can talk about it a little, right? Yeah. Okay. So this is my own work, of course, and it utilizes exactly what I try to teach you in the first 2 hours. Okay, and your homework or your tutorial, you will see almost in the similar fashion that I'm going to present. So the reason I'm doing it, it gives you an idea about 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 how to do it in even as your thesis chapter, or even the thesis chapter can turn out to be a published paper. Okay, and then when you look at your tutorial question, with some modification, actually, I think it can turn out to be a really good thesis chapter. That's the entire purpose of doing it, right? Because a lot of you could is being enrolled in your PhD or something like that, or is thinking of doing a PhD. Okay, so it's a paper which I think which has a funny name, and the paper title is "Learning Through Internationalization: Does Organizational Structure Matters?" Right, and with a subheading of lessons from Indian business group. So I'll dissect the title into 3 parts. I'll start with what is internationalization, what do we mean here. Then I'm going to go the other first word, which is learning, and then I'm going to come back to the organizational structure. So what is internationalization, right? So if you think of the internationalization literature, there are plethora of paper. And why the plethora of paper exist? Something like a distinction always being made between the firms which are located in developed country versus the emerging market. And what is the difference between, or the distinct characteristics between the two, is nothing but what we call as ownership advantages, right? Or the other way to think about it, it is nothing but non-location bound firm specific advantage, right? Because of I am located in emerging markets, I don't get certain facilities, or I don't have access to certain things. Okay, so given this, can the firms in emerging market internationalize, right? Perhaps they can. And what are the ways they want to do it? First way they think of doing it, that they have the emerging market firms has an advantage. Why? Because they can access, or they can easily access, cheap credit. They also have access to natural resources, which makes them quite different from the firms located in the developed markets. Okay, so the way we want to think of that, they also leverage the country specific advantages. First, economies of scale, then access to natural resources and cheap credit. Then what they do, they try to tie up of firms, or with firms located in the developed country. So that's I'm going to claim as learn by leveraging their relationship, right? And the last way I want to think of, that they also, markets are imperfect, right, in India. So given imperfect market, they also try to earn what I am going to call as rent. So there are three ways I can think of. One, cheap access, be it natural resource credit. Second is leveraging their links. And third is something like market imperfection, which gives rise to the rent. Okay. Then the next question is, why do we means the firms in India, invest abroad? Right? There are several issues we can think of. One, the first is something like strategic asset. What do I mean by strategic asset? So if I do investment or overseas investment, I think of that I can get something like access to technology, or I can use the brand name Pepsi, Pizza Hut, Domino's, KFC, everybody is there, right? And they create links with overseas advanced market so that they can learn faster and they can take advantage of those learning. And what would happen if you do that? You will get something like firm specific advantages, right? The second point is that overseas advantage or overseas investment also helps you to develop this in a sustained way, so in a long term way. Third, I can think of that they also try to become competitive. Competitive against whom? Against the global competitor. By doing what? By way of leapfrogging technology and associated process. Okay. Sometimes even they bypass the whole old industry and gaining competitiveness in new industry. You will see that there are a lot of these things has happened in India or perhaps even in China. Also, what they do, they learn this from their overseas venture, then they come back to increase their domestic competitiveness, right? So it is like they leverage that learning by increasing the competitiveness. And last, the one way to think about that this is not the only way they, they acquire knowledge which can help them to increase their competitiveness or firm specific advantage. What are the other ways you can think of? Exports. That's your tutorial one. Okay. What are the other ways you can think of? Linkages with global value chains. And then spillovers from inward FDI, there are other mechanisms, right? But here I'm going to concentrate only on one of the mechanism, which is nothing but investment abroad. Yeah. So given there is a considerable growth in this literature, some question is not being answered. And what are the questions that not being answered? This work is with Schumann, who is a long time back friends. I think we share friendship for last around 35 years. So that's one of the advantage. So and I started doing something, and Schumann knows this literature like top of his head. And then we talk every week for some nonsense thing. So then this is the first time we started talking on some sensible things. And Schumann says he hasn't seen something like this. And he said that, fine, let's do it then. Then we started writing up the paper. And most probably by end of summer, we will submit to Journal of International Business Studies. That's our hope. Okay. So note what are the issues that is not being done. The issues that's not being done, is it incremental process? Okay. For example, what do I mean by that? So note, I want to think of that there are two ways you can think of whether the firms are doing good or bad in the market. One way to think about it is whether the firm continuously improving their technological progress. Or one way to think about this is whether the firms continuously can perform more in terms of their operational profit. Now, or some indicator of market. So could be ROA, could be ROE, could be MVBR, could be Tobin skew, any one of them you can think of, right? By technological progress, what we think of, it is nothing but Solo's residual. What is Solo's residual? It is nothing but total factor productivity. But note, the total factor productivity is completely different, or not different, is interrelated with another concept, what we call as efficiency of the firm. So I'm going to make a distinction between efficiency and productivity, and then I'm going to move forward. So the way I want to think of it, that whether the emerging market firms are becoming more efficient in their use of tangible resources, or whether it basically improve their technological progress, which is being captured in terms of total factor productivity, right? Then we want to think of, remember the dissection? We went for the investment or the internationalization part. Then we talked about the learning part, and because whether it is a continuous process, incremental process or not. Third, what I said, organization, and that's my third one. So the third one, whether the organizational forms influence this relationship. And what kind of organizational form we are talking about? We are talking about the affiliation or the business group. So business group represents a separate form of organization. So we want to check whether the results goes in terms of organizational, or the organizational form, whether or structure, whether it matters in kind of this relationship. Yeah, fine. Yes, please.
Here, internationalization
Is overseas investment
overseas investment.
by a Indian firm, right? By a Indian firm. Remember that. So if you are familiar with Prowess database,
Yes.
you are. So we exclude all firms where the foreign ownership is equal to 50% or more. So it's a typical Indian firms where the dominated by the Indian ownership.
So,
Because we believe if your ownership is more than 50%, then it's not Indian firm.
okay. So here we are looking at the companies which have foreign ownership. There is some stake or
No,
no?
no.
There's
We
no.
are foreign ownership could be there, but the foreign ownership cannot be more than or equal to 50%. So we are excluding. So these are truly what we will call true Indian firms,
And manufacturing sector.
only manufacturing sector.
And then we will look at whether they have overseas investment.
Whether they are doing overseas investment or not, and what is the impact. Clear?
If you look at the definition of FDI, then most studies also follow the 10%.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But you're following 50%.
Yeah, because we are looking at from the ownership one, and because FDI may not get translated in terms of the ownership, right? Yes.
Is it the first investment that they make, or maybe let's suppose in case
Absolutely, that is the continued process or not. I'm going to make an distinction between the two.
let's suppose the firm I makes in the T.
Year
the current
T,
year,
and year T plus 1, and year T plus 2, and T plus 3.
maybe in the T plus 5.
Possible. And I'm going to explore that. Right? Clear? And that's why it is interesting. And that's what it is interesting even from export standpoint, from innovation standpoint, from R&D standpoint. It is not a one-shot affair. It's like a gradual process. And whether getting involved in the gradual process matter or not, first question. Does the business group get involved in a different way? Second question. Third question, whether it matters in terms of technological progress as well as the efficiency. These are the three simple questions, right? Unfortunately or fortunately, people didn't look at it. Okay, so I basically, most of my work, is something like where idea matters. Okay, and I always believe idea matters still now, and that's what it is. Fine. Now next, 100 million pound question, right? Do we contribute? And we believe we contribute, and we'll show you we did indeed contribute. Okay, so we want to focus first on organizational forms. And our question here, whether organizational forms such as business group that allows the emerging market firms to mitigate problem. What kind of problem the emerging market firms have? Kind of weak institution we live in, and then the market failures, right? Whether the organizational form matters here. Our next question would be, I'm going to make a distinction between two set of observables outcome. One set of observable outcome I'm going to call as efficiency, which is more like process innovation. Because think of efficiency. You have the technology, you have the labor, you have the capital, you want to have a proper mix of all of them so that you turn out to be efficient in nature. And that's why it is process. Clear? And then the other part of the process innovation is nothing but the growth in technological progress. So in one way you can think about it, I have the process innovation and then I have the technological progress. Clear? Okay. So I don't have any product innovation in that way. Okay. Under the assumption, I want to show you that these two, the efficiency and the TFP, they are not the same thing. They're completely different things, different aspects, and we are going to extend this literature, whatever it is available, in terms of both the process innovation and technological progress. Recall, the efficiency can actually be decomposed into three parts. Okay, where technical efficiency is one part of them. Okay, I mean, Preeti does a lot of those efficiency measures, right? Third, we want to think of OFDI, that is like overseas foreign direct investment, on both efficiency and productivity growth is nothing but not a single shot. I stop. No, it's something like a continuous process. So it's like a multi-year process, right? That's your question, that one shot versus continuous. So it is something like a continuous process where we want to look at the cumulative impact of overseas investment. So we do not want to think of one shot game. We want to think of a dynamic game where the dynamics would matter. Clear? Okay. There are some literature in terms of export behavior and productivity. So people say exporters are more productive than the non-exporters, and basically this is due to self-selection in developed country and learning effects in the developing one. And productivity gains can also arise from importing foreign inputs, which enable knowledge transfer and efficiency improvement. So if you look at your tutorial question, you will see in one case I claim that export depends on imported raw materials. Okay, so that's the way it is. Please,
What is self-selection and learning effect?
I'll come. I'll come to that. Okay, learning effect is very simple. I do learn by doing. The self selection here, I am more productive because I am located there. Okay, and the second part is clear. If I now want to think of, can I relate this literature? Of course I can. The way to think about it, if the firms are more productive, they would engage, or they would likely to get engaged more in their OFDI activity. Okay, and then with the developed country firms, again would mainly benefit from their selection. The other way to think about it, that I do OFDI, the one of the reason I do OFDI, so I establish a linkage in with the firms located in the developed market. I basically start learning from them, then I leverage that knowledge and I come back and I increase my competitiveness. I become more efficient and hence I gain something like an efficiency gain. Clear? So that's the way I want to think of this in terms of, say, for example, a joint venture. Okay. If you look at it, think of Tata, lot of joint venture, lots of joint venture has happened. Okay. So note, there could be some challenge. And what are the challenge? First, the firms may be labeled as, oh, these are the foreign firms. So what we call as the liability of foreignness. Okay. So you will face lot more hurdle when you operate in the foreign countries, right? Because simply because you are foreign. You could face cultural barrier. I do not want to talk to you because you are Indian. And that's what I call relationship building challenge. And the emerging market firms has to break all those kind of hassle or the obstacles. And then, of course, I myself need to be good, right? I just don't want to sit in terms of machine, get a data set, put some stata command. I need to internalize my learning. And that's what I call internal capacities. So I must have the knowledge or the capacity in terms of both physical and human capital and managerial skill so that I can effectively use what I have learned by leveraging the foreign knowledge that I acquire given I am engaged in WebDI. Make sense?
Yes.
Good. Right? And limits, there could be limits. Why? So note, the emerging market firms is they are adapting efficiency enhancing practices, but their ability to absorb can be limited. Why? Because they don't have the capacity to absorb, right? So something like, you have 6 rasgullas, the 7th one, you are taking by taking a challenge, what you will do? You will vomit. Exactly the same thing here, right? It's beyond capacity, you cannot absorb something. The next one, it's a gradual process. Why? Because I cannot do it right away. I need to wait. If I wait, I get benefit. And hence, I can then change my internal structure of operation and I can acquire more benefit, right? Right? Clear? So it is something like, if I do not throw my cigarette butt outside, then the person who is smoking next to me would have a tendency not to throw the butt. And it's a gradual process. So if 2 of us now do it, starting with me, then there could be a place where 10 would replicate the same. And it goes like this, right? And then the process become internalized within the firm's operation. That's the way to think about it. So I have now given this, developed couple of hypotheses or 3 hypotheses. Impact on overseas investment on both efficiency and technology driven productivity is not instantaneous, right? And as I said, it would be observed over time. Next, it would be more significant for efficiency of emerging market firms rather than their technology driven productivity. And why? Because it is simply better use of what I have learned, better internalization of what I had and then operate with that. Clear? And number 3 would come from the business group. So as you know that there are a couple of advantage of business group. First, the business group can act as a response to market imperfection. I help you because you are part of me. Second, institutional trust, resource sharing, and coordination can occur a lot easily when firms belongs to a business group, right? And then the third, managerial capability as a competitive advantage. I do not need to appoint 25 different managers. I can have very few managers who would basically govern all the firms under the one umbrella of one business group, right? So it gives me a competitive advantage in that way. There could be some risk. So note, as the business group grows, that means the size grows, there could be a coordination problem between the members of the business group, right? And that even could be even enhanced by what I will call entrenched political connection, right? So, I am in a good book, I am not in a good book, hence I suffer. Clear? So, except if you are not Ambani. So then the issue is that the family control groups may resist change, right? They don't like the changes. So what would happen? Inefficiency. What would then happen? Misallocation of capital. What would then happen? Underperforming affiliates. What would then happen? Moral hazard and weak market discipline. Standalone firms, so that means the non-business group firm, right? They are actually starting with bad situation. They are disadvantageous position because especially given weak institution. What they will do then? They would grab anything you have. So given the market opportunities, if there is one, right, they will go and grab and they will try to effectively use those opportunity simply because they do that, they would be more disciplined. And given they are more disciplined, what you will observe that they will start with a relatively weak position. Institution now perhaps is developing, capital markets, property right, whatever you think of. Then the relative disadvantage of those guys, the non-business group, right, which would go away completely, or even their fortune could reverse. So they may start doing something better than the business group firm. My third hypothesis is exactly concentrate on that, which is the impact of internationalization via OFDI on efficiency and productivity of emerging market firms may be less on average for business group compared to the non-business group. Clear? How do I achieve this target? Annual observation 2000 to 2017, very bad data before 2000. Database CMI, everybody knows. You have all sorts of information. Now note, focus specifically on firms in the manufacturing sector and look at the next point. We have to exclude if the data is not available and if there were less than 2 years of data available during our sample, or if the foreign shareholding is more than 50%, right? So I need at least for my selection purpose, I need something like 2 years of data, because why? If I take a deviation, if you have 1 year of data, then automatically that firm would be dropped. So there is no point of having that.
Why restrict to foreign shareholding of less than 50%? Include them also and then see if there is variation within the mix.
Because we are talking about only Indian firms. OFDI by the Indian firms. So we do not want anyone who is like foreign MNC or foreign firms or something like that. Mainly foreign MNC perhaps it would be. Very traditional way of doing finance. You always Winsorize the observation at 2 degrees at the bottom 1% and the top 99, or top 1% and bottom 1%, so that you get rid of the problem what we call as outliers. Okay, so it's a very traditional thing. Yes.
I did not understood this point. So can you give an example? Suppose a variable like profit or variable like,
Yeah.
so they are 20 variables
Yeah.
and there are 500 observation.
Yeah.
So for which variable you have taken, or you have taken for all? Just
Which one?
operationally, how did you
Which one? Which point? Number 4?
Vensorized?
No, no, no. So suppose you have the distribution, and the distribution will have 1% of the observation belongs here and 99% belongs here.
Which variable? For which variable?
All the variable that is being used in the regression analysis.
So generally, okay. You
Okay.
are not deleting any variable.
I'm not going to delete
Any
anything.
variable.
I'm
Any
going
row,
to
any observation.
no, no, no. If it is not available, then you it gets automatically deleted. So you truncate
Trim
it
it.
at one. You trim it at 1% and 99%. Right? Clear? Which has a funny name, which we call as Winsorization.
Thank you.
Okay. Clear? Yes, please.
Sir, given that the period is from 2000 to 2017,
Yeah.
and that period, I mean, typically all the Indian firms went to the internationalization.
Yeah. Yeah.
During that period,
Yes.
it's a process.
Yes. Yes.
So what if the firms are not crossing that circle, 50% in the year 2000 or 2005,
Yeah.
but crossed it during that particular time?
Yeah. Yeah. You can do it every year wise.
So for every year you're looking at it.
Yes. So no, you can have the ownership for every year, right?
You can, let's suppose a firm X is having foreign ownership less than 50% from 2000 to 2010.
Yeah.
But after 2010,
It is more, right?
Yeah.
So
then,
from
do you
2000 to 2010, it would be included. From 2010 onwards, it would be excluded.
that will not affect the sample.
The mean is also changing with that.
Yeah,
period.
it would change.
No, but it will change because you are excluding that particular firm because it crossed the thing.
Yes. So there are several ways you can do it. One, you calculate the average of the ownership from 2000 to 2017. If it is more than 50%, you exclude them.
Yeah, that I understood. But will it not affect the analysis or the results in the sense?
I don't think so, because we did lot of variation. It does not. More or less, the coefficient would change.
Or else, is it better to take throughout the entire steady period, take only those firms which have not crossed the 50%?
Yeah, so that is how
Truly,
I agree completely. So the way you can do it, you take 2000, exclude the firms which has more than 50%. Take 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5.
year by year.
We can do year by year. So there are two ways. Both ways gives you the same result qualitatively, in the sense that the coefficients would change, of course, right? Okay. Did I answer you?
Yeah.
Okay. So we end up only with 502 forms, total observation of 3960, which tells me an average panel length of 7.9 years. Okay, that's the structure. Dependent variable TFP, very, very popular. Levinson and Petrin, we use that. Okay. Then efficiency, there is something like variable returns to scale assumption, and we use the Russell method, and we use something like a data envelopment analysis in this particular case. In both cases, we use natural log as the output, natural log of cells as the output in real terms, real wage, real capital, and real value of materials as the input. Straightforward. Control variable, size, natural log of total asset, age, number of years since inception, leverage, debt equity ratio, shareholding pattern, right? We have shareholding pattern in that way. R&D to sales ratio, export to sales ratio. So more or less the bunch of controls are there. Focus variable, investment abroad, which we claim we are using it as an intensity variable. Why? Because we are taking that as a proportion to total sales. So OFDI divided by the sales of that firm in a particular year. Okay. So what do we do? Why do you think that, or why do we think it is very good? The way to think about it, it's a gradual process, right? So look at the equation. YIT is your outcome. Could be TFP, could be efficiency. XIT, I don't care. They are the set of controls. Look at that dummy, FJI. So how do you think about it? F1I to capture when a firm reports investment abroad intensity is higher than zero in our panel for the first time. What would be then F20 if it occurs in the second time? What happens to, it is the same form, F30, third year, F40, fourth year, and then we club everybody else, or fifth year and sixth year onwards, we start clubbing everybody. So 6 to 17, something like that. Yeah? So we are creating this different dummy. And note, the dummies are going to give you differential impact on your sustainability in terms of wave DI effect on TFP and efficiency. Clear? That's exactly what we are doing. Why here issue of sample selection or random sampling is important? Note, I want to consider the firms in an initial state of not being able to invest abroad. I don't know when did they start. My sample starts from 2000. They could have started, Prowess data set starts from 1988, but they could have started this process long before. So I want to model the probability of the initial state. What do I mean? That when I first observe them, whether they are doing the foreign investment or OFDI or not. So I estimate that, get the inverse Mills ratio, plug the inverse Mills ratio in my original or main equation, and I claim this result is applicable for random sampling, or the sample does not, what should I say, suffer from the sample selection, right? And to do that, what I did basically in my first stage probit regression, that whether they are doing it, the investment in the first period or not, I include return on asset as an added explanatory variable. Recall my exclusion restriction. I need one more variable, and that's my one more variable. Fine? Clear?
Here the sample selection is a separate problem from a self-selection. That is basically because of the way you have constructed.
Absolutely.
Whereas the firm
Yeah.
might self-select themselves into investing abroad.
Possible. It could be also self-selection. It could be also self-selection. And hence, if it is self-selection, then it is not a random sampling. So in one way, you solve the both.
By
Right?
including the
Inverse Mills ratio. Because it could be self-selection. I don't want to participate because I don't feel like participating. Yes, please.
You're saying that maybe progress data is available from 1988 or maybe from, that's the reason.
Yeah.
But it might be the case that till the year 1991, our market is.
Absolutely. Whatever it is.
So in case if you have extended this data instead of 2000, say suppose maybe from 95 or 93 onwards, then there is no problem of further, because by regulation.
No.
By
That's
regulation,
no. That's where we differ. Because where the data could be from 1900, but I don't know what has happened to the farm in 1899.
No. By regulation, the Indian.
No. You are not getting the point. I have this big universe of the farm. For some farms, I observe them from 1990. By regulation, you observe, you think of it that before 1995, it doesn't make any sense because the regulation, right? Clear? That's one problem. Now, suppose before 95, there is nothing. Clear? But from 1995, I may not get engaged in this activity because I'm self-selecting myself to do an OFDI. It's my own decision, right? This is different from the problem. Think of where there is no regulation, but I use a data set which runs from 1990 to something. As I observe the firms in 1990, because the data set, I do not know about the firm's activity in 1989. That's sample selection in the sense that, I don't observe them because I don't have the data. The first one is a self selection. This one could be non-random sample. Okay, and I solve this by using the inverse means ratio. So both problem you can think of in the same way, and then you need to solve it by using this additional variable. Okay. Yes, please.
Could you explain the dummy variable concept?
Sure. So if 1I would take the value of 1 if a firm reports investment abroad is higher than 0. F2I for the same company, remember, if for the second year it is also greater than 0. F3I would be the same way for the third year, and it goes on like that. So you will get a coefficient beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, beta 4, beta 5, and beta 6 could be. Okay? Whatever way it is.
What if there is a break?
What do you mean by break?
Like let's say if they invest for 3 years,
Yeah?
and then they don't invest for 2 years.
Yeah. And then again, I will start counting them. So my duration would be, so think of this. Okay, good question. Think of this way. I observe the number of occurrences for a firm as 5. Yeah? It could have this sequence 1110011. It could have 111100. It could have 001111. Right? As soon as it breaks the cycle, the new cycle starts. Clear?
But if you think about from an investment perspective,
Yeah.
one thing is that let's say it has invested for 4 or 5 years and
Yeah.
is having a subsidiary in some other country, right? And no longer requires maybe investment from the, let us say, parent organization.
Right.
And they don't do it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then they go back and invest in the same subsidiary after a couple.
Possible. Possible.
So in that case, shouldn't it be a continuation rather than just restarting the?
No, I mean, because I don't know. Prowess does not give you the information based on where they are investing, even the country-wise destination you don't have. You only know the OFDI amount, and that's it. You don't have any other information. And I think that's the best use we can make out of what is available in Prowess.
So this variable investment abroad,
Yeah.
is it part of balance sheet or the profit and loss statement?
I think it is in part of the balance sheet.
So it's
Yeah.
like a stock.
Yeah.
concept.
I think it is there. I think it is there.
That is where these people get data from CMI.
Yeah. So the CMI is there. Yeah. Shall I move? Yeah. Basic descriptive statistics. TFP efficiency is significantly higher for the business group firm. Okay. Business group affiliated firms are older, larger, R&D and export. They are significantly, they do more. Okay. Debt equity investment abroad intensity is not significantly lower compared to non-business group counterpart. Basic description. Correlation coefficient and investment abroad is negative and significant for both business group and non-business group, right? So if you do a one-shot analysis, you would expect that OFDI actually reduces firm efficiency as well as the productivity. That's like the correlation. Okay, fine. Is it? Okay. This is the result. So in one panel, the left-hand side, you have the results of impact of OFDI on TFP. In your homework, you need to, or in your tutorial one, you need to produce this kind of nice graph. Okay. So basically, you will see that they are measured in the same scale, both, right? Same scale. TFP and OFDI. TFP is the dependent variable, business group and the non-business group. What we observe, look at the line of 0, right? And these lines is nothing but the what? The confidence interval. And these are nothing but the point estimate. Think of whether the point estimate and the confidence interval contains 0 or not. If it does contain 0, then the impact is not significant, right? Clear? That's the way to interpret it. Look at the impact of OFDI on the non-business group. The impact is there, always. Starts here, first year, goes down, remains relatively stable. Clear? Look at the business group, almost continuously decreasing over the time period. Right? Clear?
Non-business group is
Standalone firms.
who don't have overseas.
No, 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 no. Non-business group are the firms which are standalone firms. So think of they are not part of Mahindra, Tata, Ambani, Adani, whatever you can think of.
Conglomerate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Efficiency, almost the same thing. Right? Business group goes down. Non-business group, it's still the impact is significant and it is different, right? What would be the cumulative impact? Take the sum of them. Nothing more than that. You can also calculate whether the impact in the second year or third year is significantly different from each other or not. You can do a lot. We play around with it a lot. Okay? But these are the basic thing that I want to show you. You can replicate this even in terms of export, even in terms of R&D, even in terms of process innovation, product innovation. I don't know. Yes. No, the y-axis we have TFP or efficiency, and they are measured in the same scale. You see, because it starts 0.3 at the end, 0.3 at the end. Otherwise, the magnitudes are not comparable with each other. Always you should do that. So the way to think about it, so look at this coefficient. Okay, think of this is 0.015. So the way to think about it, if the firm belonging to a business group does a first year OFDI, then that their efficiency is increasing by 0.015 unit compared to any other year, right? Because it's a dummy. It's the coefficient. We plot the coefficient. Okay. Yes.
Suppose for a firm is doing OFDI.
Yes.
Suppose for 2 years the dummy variable is 1 1 and then 0 0.
Yeah.
And then again it started doing OFDI.
Yes.
Again 1 1 1 1.
Yes.
And you are observing till 5 years.
Yeah.
So suppose
No, I observe for all the years.
all the years, right? So suppose when in the first year the firm started OFDI, and after this 0 0, when again it started OFDI, so in the first OFDI dummy, it captures both.
It could. It could.
So basically, if I am investing today and I am investing after 10 years,
Yeah.
so I am also learning by investing,
Yeah.
but I am accounting it in a one shot.
What do you mean?
So only at one when I am first doing it.
So think of it that I do it in year T and year T plus 1. Right? So that means my dummy OFDI 1 year would take the value of 1 for the first 2 years.
Right.
Then it becomes 0.
Then
After 10 years, they come back and they do it again for year 11 and year 12. Right? So then it comes, I would treat them a new starter of OFDI business.
Then again it starts with the 1.
And then again I want to create the sample selection.
Right. Then
And
sample selection
would take into account. Yeah? Fine. So then given this, my third hypothesis, remember the business group. So what I do here,
Adding to this point, if
Yeah.
there is a learning curve,
yeah,
shouldn't we kind of at least it might may add bias, positive bias to the result?
possible. That is possible. So then the estimated coefficient is measured downward bias. So actual effect would be larger. which is more desirable? Because the way you can think about it, that ideally what one should do, calculate the sum and get the cumulative impact. Calculate the sum and get the cumulative impact, or take whether these two are significantly different from each other or not. See, these and these are definitely, but these and these are not. I doubt whether they would be. These and these definitely would be.
So,
Yeah.
in that inverse line ratio,
Yeah.
you're observing when you're first observe the investment, right?
Yeah.
So after the 0, 0,
Again, it comes to 1,
right? So
and then again the variable gets the value of
so
1.
that means this first state dummy does not suffer from sample selection because you are already
Absolutely.
opting for this.
Yes.
And the inverse ratio is significant for
Everything. Always it is significant.
that one is significant.
Yes. Yes. So then what we do is I think that's the slide. Yeah. Interacted model. So note what we do. You have the separate ones, right? The dummies. Now those dummies are being interacted with the business group dummy. What's interesting here? Everything is negative and significant, right? So it is the non-business group which basically gains significantly from OFDI compared to the business group. The result is true in terms of TFP as well as efficiency. Question is why? Why do you think it would happen, right? What we do, why does it happen for the business group? So what you can do, you can make a distinction, what I will call as industry in terms of their technological stability or technological situation. I call it as high and low. And I follow these European statistics where you get this manufacturing industry between high tech, medium high, medium, and low tech. And I combine the high, medium, and medium in one group, and low, medium, and low in the other group. And I create a dummy. Clear? So high takes the value of 1, and then, of course, the low takes the value of 0. This graph is even more interesting to me. So what we do here, yeah, two-way and three-way interaction we do. You see, recall my negative coefficient. You observe those negative coefficient everywhere, right? Because this is nothing but business group multiplied with OFDI. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. Remember this graph? Sorry, this one? Almost the replica here. Then what? Then we interact the business group investment in year with the high. You'll see the impact turns out to be positive, at least for certain years. Clear? So what they do, the business group, they go for those high-tech industry, and then in those cases, they gain significantly in terms of their TFP, although the gain is not that, they don't experience it for that long. However, at least for some years, they do experience the gain, right? And the overall effect is, although negative, this interaction effect is positive, right? So how do you interpret them? One way to think about it, if you belong to business group, investing in or engaged in WebDI, in high-tech industry, in year 1, then your productivity increases by around 0.1 unit compared to any other firms not belonging to business group, not getting engaged in WebDI in 1 year, and not getting into high-tech industry. Recall, this is a three-way interaction effect, and People don't feel comfortable using a three-way because you need to be very careful in terms of the interpreting the coefficient. Very, very carefully you have to write it. Okay. What happens with the efficiency? Almost exactly the same thing gets replicated. Uh, Once I interact in a three-way interaction, the impact is positive, but lot of times you will observe that the impact is no longer significant, except in investment in year 6 when I interacted with high with business group, simply because the effect is less than 0, but it is not significant. The last point in my data. Clear? And that's it. Conclusion, I don't have anything to tell. I don't know. I don't do policy.
So what is the industrial distribution of these firms?
I don't recall.
Because I think I was also thinking the same thing because this could be pharmaceutical in the
Pharmaceuticals is in the high. Chemical is in the high. There are something
automobile
else.
also control. Automobile could be
Automobile could be in the high. So I just follow that definition and I disaggregated them exactly following that. Food, I think, is the low, something like that. Something, yeah.
you included sales also and then R&D also divided by sales.
Yeah, yeah.
So once you've already controlled for size by using sales,
No, I included the size control by log of the asset.
yes, you've already controlled for size, then do we have to also take a ratio of R&D and export price
I just use them as an intensity variable, that R&D over sales, export over sales, investment abroad over sales
as an intensity?
as an intensity variable. Yes,
Sir, since you already have panel data, why not to include industry fixed effects?
it is there.
I I could not follow, sir. How is it doing?
What do you mean?
Like I'm talking about the fixed effect model.
It is firm fixed effect is there.
Yeah, but the industry is making significant impact on the
But if
intensity.
let me finish. If the firm fixed effect is there, then you don't need the industry fixed effect.
But sir, how would you control for industry in that case? You just
Because you control for farms, it is a better control than even the industry fixed effect.
so you cannot have both in same.
No, because if you try it, if you try that, you will see the industry would get automatically dropped.
Then even dummy variables are also dropped in fixed effect.
Huh?
In dummy variables are also dropped.
Which dummy variables would be dropped?
Which where you didn't have the explanatory variables.
Whatever the dummy is, if it is time invariant, then it would be dropped. Only time invariant. There is a trick you can apply here, and we do the trick. So you can have the business group as your one category and take non-business group firms. There could be 500 of them or 400 of them, or I don't know how many of them. Take one of them as the base. So you can estimate everybody using a fixed effect. One fixed effect when you have the business group case, this interaction model, only at the business group. And then you have, say, N1 leftover firm, which is not part of the business group. So you include N1 minus 1 dummies. Clear? That's the trick. There is another trick which I will teach you, which is known as correlated random effects model, which is following something like a Moonluck correction. I'll come to that when I go to the panel models. Don't worry. I mean, you try and it would be dropped. Okay? Yes, please.
Is it ideal now to also control?
Sorry?
Is it ideal also to control?
Idea.
Ideal to control for firm and year effect, the interaction.
You can. If you control for the, if you have year dummy, I think you can have the year dummy. I don't think you should have age. Then you should have age square. Because age and year dummy would be exactly collinear with each other. So you can use age square. Because you see, age is what? 18, 19, 20 like this. One increase by every unit. And year dummy is exactly the same thing. Takes the value of 1 belongs to observation. If year belongs to year t. T plus 1, another 1. So they would be collinear. Clear? Fine. Any other question?
Sir, why you take the both productivity as well as efficiency?
Huh?
Why you take the both?
Because why do I take both? Because I thought that, efficiency is more like process, productivity is something more like technological progress.
But if you look at the pattern of some of those investments were being made, for example, Tata's when they
Yeah.
acquired Jaguar,
Yeah.
or even now we find that many pharmaceutical companies are investing abroad for the R&D ecosystem that they get there.
Right.
So then, don't you think the technology one should be more prominent and
Doesn't come out to be the case, because I think the way you want to think about it, you need to have the absorption or the absorptive capacity to use what you have learned, and that gets more reflected in terms of efficiency rather than the productivity.
but you're controlling for absorptive capacity by including R&D intensity.
It may not capture properly the entire production process, right? I mean, R&D could be like, I don't know. I mean, the Indian prowess data's problem is, we cannot even distinguish between R&D in current account versus in capital. But yeah, but it's horrible data in current and capital.
It is money.
Sir, can we control for this royalty payments technology?
That's like import. That's kind of
It
import.
could be imports or it could be domestic.
Yeah, yeah. It could be more or less like import, more or less. Yeah, you can.
Because that will also influence TFP and efficiency.
Yeah, but I mean, I would rather claim, right, my unobserved form effect is controlling for everything else which is not included in the model. That's what I would say. Yes, please. I couldn't hear you, sorry.
So
Why?
I'm saying why return on asset is the exclusion criteria.
I need something. You suggest something else, I'll use that.
Okay. And how did you measure this OFDI variable?
It's there in prowess. Straight variable is there.
Okay, it's there.
Yeah, overseas investment abroad for, and that's exactly that's the title of the variable. Huh?
Investment abroad.
Investment abroad, there is a variable. Overseas investment abroad, they call it, I think. There is a variable.
Okay.
Yeah? Go back, relax, do the tutorial one. It would help you. Shall I finish it here?
Sir,
Yes,
about
please.
the visualization process,
Yeah,
do you visualize within the firm or across the data set?
across the data set.
Sir, why not within the firm? Are we looking for outliers within the firm or across the
That would do, both would do the same thing, right? Because if you draw the scatter is form specific.
Yes.
And then if you take one variable and then you does the trimming, then it basically does it for everybody who is outlier. Everybody means what? The forms which is being included, right? It doesn't matter.
And sir, just in case if you are removing rather than visualizing the outliers, so do you remove the entire firm or just the
No,
firm?
you just remove that observation. You don't remove the entire form. Here what you do, there are two ways to do it. Either remove it completely or truncate it at 1% and 99%. And that's it. You can truncate it 5% and 95%. A lot of people does it,
When you
yes.
will remove the observation, then the firm will get automatically.
That particular observation of that form of that year would get automatically removed, right?
It will be there for the other years.
It would be there for the other year. Where can I throw this?
Keep it there. So I think we are ending today.
Yeah, that's what the schedule says.
So I think we will
I'm just
close our session for today. I suggest you go back, look at your note material has already been shared, and because the information related to tutorial 1,
yeah.
right?